Hello everyone. Today we're going to dig into finishing off this neck. And one of the things we're going to do first is to saw out the outline of these two remaining sides of the peg head. The treble side is already made up with the J strip, so-called. So that's kind of done. And these have been cut for the Stealth tuning pegs. Beautifully cut, and you can see on this page that we're showing you right now where you can watch how I've been doing that. So the reason for leaving this extra material is that when you're using this cutter, which is 5/32 or 4mm ball end cutter, that it doesn't have a chance to splinter the ebony as it goes off the part. We've left extra material on the part. This is a common thing in woodworking. So we have extra material on the outside of the part, and now we're going to saw it off. We've got this little piece of, I know it looks like bamboo, but it's just 1/8" masonite underneath. And that's going to keep the part from splintering from the bandsaw. Probably not a big chance of that happening, but still, it's good practice to give it some support. All right? So, back where it belongs. Kind of an exciting part of guitar making, dialing up this thing and making it look pretty after all that work. Okay. So first we'll saw the end. So you saw me fussing around with the position of the bandsaw, which fortunately is easy to wheel around. I've run out of lamp adjustment. So the problem is marking ebony with a pencil is a little iffy, and you need to get the light reflected exactly in the right direction to be able to see it. It's often quite tricky. And there are other ways to mark it, but I guess I'm stubborn. I'm still sticking with a pencil. So now we're going to move to the 4-inch belt sander and finish off sanding to the line. I think you can see that the line is still here on the part. Half of the pencil line roughly still on the part. And what we have for a surface, a little hard to see, but anyway, I know there's a 60 grit belt on that sander, which is a nice compromise for most work. You can see it leaves a nice surface, although there are 60 grit scratches. They're really not very deep. And of course, we've accomplished our goal at very cleanly cutting this material so that we don't have any tear out on the back surface of the peg head. Okay, and now the next job is to sand this surface. Oh, well, this was the layout tool for the headstock. But we're going to sand this surface to 320 grit and make sure we get those .60 grit scratches to go away. But first, while the surface is fresh like this, we are going to put crazy glue or thin cyanoacrylate adhesive in here as a sizing agent. What that'll do for us is it means that the dust that comes from this ebony is not going to get packed into this pretty light-colored Douglas fir. So we're going to make sure that the Douglas fir is full of crazy glue so that it can't get packed with ebony dust. And I want to be careful here. I probably should put wax paper in here so I can't accidentally glue this to the vise. But it hasn't run anywhere, so that's good. Can't really use accelerator on this until you're really done. But it is quite thirsty. And I'm going to keep putting on more adhesive until it won't take anymore. And it really doesn't look good to have the ebony dust packed into softwood. The big problem with certain kinds of instruments, for example, the lute has a ebony fingerboard that abuts the end of the top. It's just really, really difficult to do any sanding up there without marking the beautiful spruce surface up with black dust. So we're just going to keep putting this on until it won't take anymore. I guess there are other things you might be able to use to do this. I suppose you could try hot glue, but you have to wait for it to dry and then sand it a little bit and probably reapply it, because it won't, the hot glue wouldn't penetrate the softwood much. Whereas the thin cyano is happy to jump in there and fill up a little bit of the wood with with cyanoacrylate. Easy to make a mess with this stuff. Hard to see how we do without it. You can see the end is super thirsty. All those capillary tubes that used to feed the tree water and nutrients. And it's really remarkable that the 60 grit is so coarse, and yet when you speed it up, and don't force it, it's capable of leaving a beautiful surface, compared to what you might think you would get. It might surprise some people that you'd go right from 60 grit power sanding to 320 grit hand sanding, but time has shown that often you get the best results in the least time by starting with a grade of sandpaper at or near your final grit. Isn't that an amazing material? Should we do a quick count here? Let's see. Wood is really one of the most amazing vegetable products you could ever imagine. So I should have said, and the reason I'm taking it off is so the next time I put it on, I can see if it's still going in. A little bit. Well, it's slowing down now. Still absorbing a little bit. I'm probably ready to quit. Well, for better or worse, we're seeing some cyano in these little 4mm slots here. These hold the shaft of the tuning peg really, really well. And they defeat the only real bad design part about these stealth pegs, which is that they're easy to damage by banging the input shaft. So if you bend it, that's probably the end of the peg. You know, if you bang it against something. Of course, we try not to do that, but things do happen. It's already a problem because the pegs got discontinued. I guess I should be shipping an extra 6 pegs with every guitar. Probably just start doing that and hope they stay together with the instrument. Oh, maybe I should ship 5 so no one just robs them and puts them on another guitar. You wouldn't do that, would you? I think we're pretty full. I'm going to resist the temptation to hit this with accelerator and just walk away from this for a little while and let it cure naturally. So, see you on the other side of that. Okay, we're back. We'll see if we can't make this a little bit more lively. Sorry about all that waiting for the glue. But anyhow, this was the cutoff from the end, and I leaked cyano from this surface, all right, until it filled up, and then hit it with accelerator. And you can see here, I just sanded this, and you can see that in some of these capillaries, the cyano went really, I think, down to there, which is almost 8 millimeters, looks like, 300 thousandths. Not all of it. I mean, most of it is 2/3 of that or something. But still, quite a lot of penetration. Interesting, huh? Now this is ready for us to sand. Now with some 320 paper. And, some pretty loud squeaking. And you can see it's nice and hard. Makes it easy to sand, and of course the cyano is supporting the wood fibers beautifully, so they can't mush over. And sometimes when you're sanding softwood end grain, it's hard to get a good surface because the fibers are soft enough so that they kind of crush and get distorted and look bad. But I think you'll agree that looks pretty nice. So, kind of what it'll look like when it's finished. Yummy, and no evidence of ebony contamination in this end grain. That's what we were hoping for. Okay. You can get a sense of just how great this thing sounds just by touching it. Very impressive materials. It's kind of the best of both woods, both worlds, I mean. Got this lovely, relatively low density Douglas fir. Bounded by some extraordinary ebony veneers. So you see that 60 grit scratches are now gone here. It really is pretty quick work. And again, partly because the cyano has made the material super hard, crisp. Well, it comes off in powder. So it's almost like a kind of a piece of plastic just on the surface here where we're sanding. And that's making it go very well. Again, no contamination of ebony grit. I like these little sanding blocks a lot. They're comfortable size to hold, and you can really feel them, so there's no danger. Be careful, of course. No danger of inadvertently rolling the surface unless you were to stop paying attention. But you can really feel it. I like basswood for these, nice and light, super stable. All right, well, that's all but a couple of those 60 grit scratches. And a couple of them still here. To finish this off, we'll just go downhill. I don't know if it really matters, but sometimes it's the thought that counts. So we're going with the grain here. And not sanding backwards. Okay, so there's a little chamfer, just a little more fun to handle. And we think we're pretty good with this. Next thing is we'll I might as well sand these while we're here. I'll put this on to protect the pin from a mistake. This is a good example of where you might as well start out with the grit that you want to end with. Keep things simple. All right, that looks fine. Yeah, the advice on corners and chamfers is that you can always take more off later. I like to leave them crisp. I think they look more professional and stronger when they're crisp looking than when they're all rounded over. We are not going to be able to finish this part of the neck until we have a nut glued in here. And before that happens, we're going to put frets in it. All right. I suppose I could do some more sanding on this neck right now, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's pretty close. There aren't any real problems. And so maybe I'll wait till the frets are in to do the final sanding. And again, that has to be done after the nut is glued on. So I use an ebony nut. You know, that when I was young, there was a lot of, I guess people are never going to stop talking about the nut material, but there was a lot of talk about nut material when I was coming up. And somewhere in there, the brass nut saga got started. Anybody remember that? Or all of a sudden, somebody decided, kind of like a conspiracy theory, really, that a brass nut was going to make your instrument sound better. And people talked about this even when it was pretty clear that it didn't make the instrument sound better. But it sure was a miserable material to make a nut out of. So some of us had to struggle with that for a while as repair guys, because we were being asked to make brass nuts for people's guitars, because it was all the rage in fashion. So that was kind of hard for a while. And then when I started building my own guitars, I wondered why an ebony nut wouldn't be just fine. And then I thought, well, maybe the ebony nut would sound different than the frets, which then I was using nickel silver for frets, like almost everybody does. So what happened was I made a test nut that had, I can't remember what I made it out of exactly. I did it on the Strat. Made a test nut, and for each string I put a different nut material. I used bone and ivory and brass and nickel silver and ebony and plastic. And I put all G strings on the Strat, and my friends and I couldn't hear the difference. So I said, well, I get it. Just make the nut out of something that wears acceptably well, and we can get away with that. It's in that spirit that I fit my guitars with ebony nuts. I think it looks better. They seem to work fine. It would maybe be different if you had a vibrato, but for an archtop guitar without a vibrato, I think we're all good with an ebony nut. Next time we'll look into the fret job.